see as a way to sustainably keep residents engaged throughout your term and not just during election season?
There's two parts to that. I've actually worked, I'm an old field person and a field person here in California. And one of the things that I've learned, particularly in the Asian community, a lot has to do with language, also with customs and how we engage with voters. And there's been a tendency, and I've worked on some of these campaigns where there may be a particular person in the community that politicians work with, but they don't engage directly with constituents. And that's something that does need to change quite a bit. And fortunately for me, I am a people person. I like to sit and listen. That's something that I've learned how to do very well. And I'm also, depending on the community, if it's Korean, my Korean has gotten very well. I've done very well with my Korean. And that actually is something that I think when people, when we have communities, bicultural communities, language is always, I think, a concern. And one of the things that I love to do, because I love languages, is work on and work with a community where no matter what you want to say it in your own language, and we'll have interpreters. But I think constant engagement. You just can't just show up. And being from a minority group where there's a tendency to pander, where people show up for certain things, I know exactly how that feels. You want to see people not when they want something from you. And I think that's a lot of times where that affects turnout too.
Thank you, Janet. Josh?
Yeah, I'd be remiss if I didn't say that we owe a debt of gratitude to our Filipino-American brothers and sisters in this community. During COVID, I don't think that there was a single community that paid the price more than those folks because of the overwhelming presence in our healthcare system and providing care. We were talking about nurses assistants, caregivers who work double time, triple time shifts, literally watching the bodies pile up. And if you speak to them, they have PTSI from the experience and continue to work today through all that. And it's remarkably heavy. I got to know many of you, as a matter of fact, through the process of gaining the California Democratic Party endorsement. And how did I do that? Because I called and I spoke to each of you and I listened to you and I made sure that our issues aligned, that our priorities aligned, and that I heard you in every way. And that's precisely how to engage the Filipino American community, is to be present, is to understand, and to make sure that the issues align in every single way. And so, I feel very comfortable and confident that I will be able to make that and build trust within that community.
Thank you, Josh. We're going to stay with you on this one.
Yeah.
Who are the 3 top donors to your campaign? What is your affiliation with them? And if an individual, what is their scope of work?
The 3 top donors to the campaign. Can I answer via endorsement? I have several max donors, fortunately.
If you have max donors,
I think that I should just basically say that I have the endorsements of California Teachers Association, the California Faculty Association, California Federation of Teachers. And I would say that I would highlight those the most. I have support throughout the labor movement, as a matter of fact, having received the support of the the LA County Labor Fed. And that's because I believe in supporting working class families at every single opportunity. In the course of this campaign already, I've been out on the line with SEIU 121, those are nurses up in Hollywood, and they're fighting for a contract. I was at the Ralph's on PCH and 2nd Street. Same thing out on the line for UFCW 324, and they're fighting for a contract, and fair wages and equitable conditions. Remember, these are people that went to work so the rest of us could stay home during the pandemic. And we need to stand with our brothers and sisters in the House of Labor. So I would say it's labor.
Thank you, Josh. Janet?
My donors, my top donors are individuals, and my donors are small donors. I have a small donor campaign, and one's a retired teacher. Another one is a retired person from law enforcement where she actually did social work, and then the other is an active teacher. So I'm the small donor candidate here.
Thank you, Janet. We're going to stick with you on this. What measures should the state take to increase the number of affordable, low-income, and very low-income housing units available? Would you support state-funded building of such housing?
That's two parts for me. The first thing that we should do with when we're talking about low income, it's become relative now because of inflation. We all need low income housing. If you're middle class, right now the middle class no longer exists in the housing market. I do support public housing, but the first thing that I'd like to do is just share with you that our state and our country as a whole needs to relearn what real public housing is. It's actually social housing. And I think we need to unlearn our 1970s visual, because that's what a lot of detractors of public housing, when people think of that, they think of the housing projects from the 70s. Social housing is new, modern housing. It's intergenerational. It's a modern mix, and also it's not driven based on investment the way we treat the housing market right now. And also some of the things that I would love for us to start doing is get rid of a lot of the bureaucratic red tape that's tied to nonprofit home building, because I think that's where we're going to get the lower cost housing, or as I call it, reasonable priced housing. Because right now, even someone making, I'd say $120,000 a year still can't buy a home in California because there's no mobility in the housing market. But I definitely would support public funding, and also I'd also work as a part of a delegation to actually help bring more social housing mixed models to California.
Thank you, Janet. Josh?
I would answer the question by yes, I would totally and completely support public funding of housing. In this state, we already have it to some degree. I mean, that's effectively, how redevelopment projects work for the most part. We are subsidizing developers. What we're not doing is subsidizing enough when it comes to our, the most needy in our community. I believe in building permanent housing for our homeless population in this state. As I say in most forums, when I get the opportunity, it's wild to think that the state of Utah, the most conservative state in the United States, has built permanent housing for its homeless population, and we have failed to do so here in California. So I believe in that unequivocally. I echo the point that Janet made so well, which is about time. The time that it takes to get these projects underway. We don't want to remove or relinquish the environmental safeguards that we have in place, but at the same time, we need to make sure that we get these deals moving and going and construction going sooner rather than later.
Thank you, Josh. We have 2 more questions, and I'm going to start the second to the last with Janet. What do you think of rent stabilization?
I support rent control because right now here in California, there's absolutely no mobility in housing. We don't have a middle class. We have more people renting who could buy homes, but they can't because the housing, the cost of homes in our state are just overly inflated. Some of it is, I think, unregulated in the sense of how it's been allowed for property to pass hands and actually artificially inflate housing. But in terms of rent control, yes, I support it. I also support repealing both the Ellis Act and Costa-Hawkins, because I think that those, we have multiple factors that's causing a lot of our housing crisis issues. And I think those two are at the root when we start talking about rent. Those two items in place, particularly with the Ellis Act. That's where a lot of these pump and dump schemes have happened with private equity companies making acquisitions of multi-unit buildings. They fill them up with people, and then all of a sudden they start raising the rent. And then as people start to get evicted, what happens is when that eviction process happens, they usually will dump the property, meaning they'll sell it on to their friend or whoever, how they're circulating money to do that. But definitely I support rent control.
Thank you, Janet. Josh?
I do too. Are we going to disagree on anything?
I doubt it.
It's going to be something.
We're Democrats.
What's your favorite ice cream flavor?
Chocolate.
We're progressive. Okay, there's a difference. Coffee. I support rent control. In the communities, or the cities, I should say, that have implemented rent control, we don't see this, inferno of macroeconomic meltdown as, the housing developers say there's going to be, and the landlords and apartment owners say there's going to be. It just doesn't happen whatsoever. As a matter of fact, in most of those communities thrive economically after that. I believe that we have to require communities and cities, municipalities, to do their fair share. So it's not simply rent control only, but they also have to increase inventory as part of that process. It has to have a dual-edged support. Because there are many who want to simply do the one without the other. And so I am YIMBY and not NIMBY.
Thank you, Josh. Okay, last question. And this is to you, Josh. What issues currently are not primary focus that you feel are important in the district that you will address?
That are not primary focus? What do you mean by primary?
I would say that the current assembly member has not focused on that you feel it should have been focused on.
Thank you for clarifying. Well, I'm going to go back to environmental justice. I mean, the current assembly member has done wonderful work in the ways of public education and funding for public education. He comes from the classroom, and I admire his work in that regard. But he has also been an advocate for the fossil fuel industry. And I would say that, we have a tremendous difference in that regard. I want to hold the industry accountable in every way. I want the state to take the lead in protecting the citizens of this community at every opportunity. So I would say that that's going to be a huge, huge gap, a huge one between us.
Thank you, Josh. Janet?
For me, it's dealing with housing, the issues with real estate and landlords. That's something that I have been, I'd say a little disappointed that that's not also in the discussions about homelessness and housing, because I think how the real estate industry operates, we need reforms. A perfect case and example is in African American homeowners. They can, African American homeowners in even high net worth neighborhoods, when their homes are being appraised, their homes are appraised at less value. And there have been experiments here in California where individuals have had their white friends come in, they take their photos off the wall, and all of a sudden the appraisal shoots up, or the home should have been 1.2 million. Just the black family had all of their photos in the home, home's appraised at 800,000. But then they do the change and it's 1.3 million. That's something that's not being said, because that affects a family's ability to build wealth. as well as also move up in the housing market. So reforms to real estate along those lines, as well as who should be able to purchase and create specialized purchasing lanes for the middle class. That's not being talked about. And that's what we need, because that's where we need the mobility, so that we can make sure that people are moving up who can afford to buy, and we stabilize housing prices.
Thank you, Janet. Okay, we're going to candidate closing remarks. We started with Janet with the opening, so we'll start with Josh with the closing.
Yeah, I feel really happy for this opportunity. It's really nice to speak to you all. I also feel a bit remiss because I ended up speaking about the same issues. We didn't get a chance to talk about criminal justice reform, the things that we need to in this state. We didn't talk much about how the vast majority of the state lives paycheck to paycheck, and the rising costs of gas alone is going to create more homelessness in this state. We didn't talk about the need for investing in early childhood education or higher education. We didn't get a chance to talk about automation and what automation is doing to our economy over the next 10 years, and job retraining and the things around that. We didn't talk about the labor movement, the need for collective bargaining, the exciting things that are happening when we see Amazon, organizing, Starbucks organizing, and what that can mean for our economy. We didn't talk about the rise in crime in our community. We didn't talk about how murder is up 90% in our community. We didn't get a chance to speak about so many things. The job of the member of the assembly in this community is to, really work on all of these issues and to make everybody's life in this community, everybody's quality of life better. I really hope that I've at least given you some indication tonight of what my values are and the things that I want to work on, and I hope that I've had the opportunity to earn your support. I look forward to working with you in the years ahead. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Josh. Janet?
Well, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for this opportunity to share my thoughts. I would love to be able to collaborate and work with your group as well as our community as we build a great future for the 69th district. And one of the things that I want us to be able to focus on is moving into change for bringing a group, what I would say, to Long Beach, a group of us all together now that we have East Carson with us, and be a family in the sense of thinking ahead about our young people, because that's something that that is special to me, not just housing, because I really feel like we need to make decisions today so that their future is much better. I know we all have our needs that we want right now, but I want to be able to say that we work together to make tomorrow a wonderful place. And I definitely want to do that. As the econ head that I am, I want to expand our economy, the green economy, where it is so big, it's just like what we did for tech here in California. And that's something that I want to excite our young people with, as well as those of us who are young at heart. Everyone who wants a job can have a job. The Green New Deal. I am here to do that, and I look forward to the opportunity of representing the 69th district. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Janet. And just to clarify, one thing I'd like to do as we open this up was to identify what the 69th Assembly District is. It includes Long Beach, Signal Hill, Catalina Island, and if either you need anybody to walk precincts, I'll take care of Catalina. Gotta give me a ferry ticket. I'll do that. Oh, the other one.
They could use some progressives over there.
Yes, oh yeah, I walked precincts there before. And then San Clemente Island, which that one person that's a voter on San Clemente down south, and then Lakewood and Carson. So that is
Lakewood is not in the district.
It is not. That little notch.
No.
I looked on the map. The little notch goes up in the Lakewood.
It's not.
I'll put money on it. I'll put money on it.
And actually, there's a portion of Long Beach that's not in the district as well, which is
Above
roughly
Market,
the ninth council district.
Going up like Atlantic. like up market there?
Yeah, yes, yeah. So
Yeah.
Okay.
Roughly the 9th council
Right
district of
north
London.
there.
Yeah.
So that is a district. Oh,
Opening questions or no?
if the club would like, if the candidates are okay with that, because that wasn't the original
Fine.
intention.
Yeah.
The candidates open to it, we'll open the floor to questions.
We all talked about the questions, and Chris Robeson, immediate past president. My concern is, and this is a loaded question, so if you don't want to answer it, I get it. When you're elected to be a member of the Assembly, how are you going to deal with the establishment resistance to health care for all? And I'm talking specifically about Speaker Rendon shelving SB 562 2 years ago, and the author of 1400 shelving his own bill. How are you going to deal with that politically? Voted, I said, and if you don't want to answer, that's cool. But I'd like you to. Thank you.
Well, for me, being an outsider is my thing. I've never been inside the lines to begin with. What I will do is continually drive home numbers, facts. That I'm a fact-driven person, and I do know about the gamesmanship that went on, and a lot of what I feel was, to be brutally honest, was a lot of posturing that went on, and it was performative acting. And that's something I'm very direct, and I will actually like to talk to Speaker Rendon about that. And that's something that I would do and say, listen, this is what I'm about. Level with me. And that I always give people that one time to level with me. You either do it or you don't. And if you choose not to, it's usually not a good thing to do that with me. But I am someone that they will know where I stand, and they will know that I'm going to keep pushing. And I'm the kind of person where I build coalition of groups, and if we have to roll up, we just have to roll up one up.
You know, there's two schools of thought on when a controversial vote is going to come to play. Do you force the vote, even if you don't have the votes? Or do you pull it back and get the votes and before you bring it back to the floor, right? In either scenario, what has to be done, Chris, is you have to get people elected that are going to vote the right way. And so really what we have to do as leaders, whether it's Janet or myself as the next assembly member in this community, is build the bench not only in this community for the people that are going to follow, members of council, school boards, community college boards, that are going to be progressive voice for the future, but to go out throughout the state, raise money, support the candidates who are going to be voting the right way, because that's how you affect change in the legislature. And so I think, you know, the fact of the matter is you can't win every battle in the legislature. You can't. And so what do? Do you lay down after it's over, or do you make the change requisite so that you get the things the right way the next time it comes up? I'm committed to doing that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Anybody else want to ask a question? Oh, give one more question from the floor. 3, 2, oh, Ann?
Yeah. When our group is out tabling at the farmers markets,
Yeah.
everybody gets very excited about the governor, about somebody running for president. So when they say, what is the assembly? Why do I care? What do I tell them? What do you think? Why does
Ben?
somebody in there care about who's representing them?
You know, it's fascinating. If you go speak to 20 people, maybe 1 or 2 of them know what the assembly is. And maybe none of them will know, maybe one of them will know who their assembly member is, right? We have an overall disengagement right now in the political process. And so what do we say that the assembly does? The assembly creates the laws and manages the budget of the 5th largest economy in the world. It oversees our system of public education. All of the quality of life issues that affect us the most are handled by the state of California. And the legislature, the state assembly, if you're explaining it to them, is effectively the House of Representatives for the state of California, where we are elected by district, and who you elect matters. As we learned from this pandemic, it's literally life or death. Who you elect matters, and leadership matters.
I would tell them the assembly, besides the definition of what the assembly is, let them know that you're a member of the assembly, it's your voice. And sometimes people don't realize that. Of course, we know sometimes your voice is not the voice that's being said, but that's where I would start, opening up by saying your voice, and then start asking the other questions. Some of the things that I've learned here, just living in California over the years, a lot of people are disconnected from knowing about the assembly is because I think some neighborhoods never see that person engaged, and that's largely why people don't know what the assembly does or what how does their life fit into that. But definitely, I would start with letting them know it's your voice, and if you want it heard, please come out and meet this person, talk to this person, and make sure they understand that they're speaking for you. I know some people don't really think that they are, but you have to remind people sometimes.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you both. Let's give a round of applause for our candidates.
Thank you, and thank you, Josh. It's good to see you.
Always good to see you.
Yeah, because our future assembly member's sitting right here. Seriously, sitting right here. So the way I'm going to open this up, we do give the opportunity to club members to vote for an endorsement for either of the candidates. But first, I just want to allow a dues-paying member from the floor to make a motion to endorse. And then we can go there from each candidate, if that makes any sense. Nada's giving me a look like, what are you doing?
So, I move that, yes, we can do an endorsement? Is that what the, or I move that, yes, we can endorse?
And are we present
Mr.
for
President,
that?
I suggest,
I think we
I
should.
suggest
think
before
we
we take this up, we ask the candidates to step outside for a
Okay.
moment while we make
Yeah,
their
or we
deliberation.
can sing it out.
Yeah, I need to.
Who
Okay,
seconded that?
you need a vamonos?
Yes.
So we're gonna, once again, let's give a round of applause for the candidates, folks.
Thank you, everybody.
Don't go anywhere, we'll do this quickly, but we just think it's fair.
I mean, it's up to the candidates if you want to stick around.
I have to get back to my kids.
Okay.
Yeah.
But if you'll just
Robson, quit pushing, they want to roll.
step outside for a minute and deal with this and get you back in.
No, Robson,
He's
they
gonna
want
get
to,
to his kids.
yeah, they both want to roll home, let them do their thing.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thanks again, Josh.
Thank you, everybody.
Janet.
Who seconded that motion that Nada made?
Well, we didn't make a motion yet. Robson made a recommendation is what transpired.
Very nice to meet you.
Chris, back
Yeah,
up.
because we'll sit tight for a moment and roll through this for the 69th Assembly District.
Is Kaylee still there? We
Yes.
can take this time to introduce Kaylee.
Okay, we can have Kaylin come up and speak. Okay, so as is in the, or do you want to, you guys can make a motion from the floor.
Yeah, no, I know, but we're killing time so they can leave. That was my idea.
Okay, Nada.
That was all.
Kaylee,
That was all.
it is in the agenda. We're going to have candidates speak. We do have Kaylee Caruso, who is the only Democrat running in the Long Beach, California 3rd City Council District. Kaylee Caruso. Yeah, that one's the best one.
This one?
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me tonight. Thank you for being here. It's such a beautiful environment, great conversation. I love listening and bringing my kids along to share in the event. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Kaylee Caruso. I'm running in the 3rd District in Long Beach. I am not a politician. I have no political aspirations. I am just a resident that's very invested in Long Beach and personally invested. I've done community organizing in Long Beach with Show Up for Racial Justice Long Beach. I have a master's in public policy. I'm very passionate about policy and the impact it can have for generations on folks. And how do I bring everyone's voice to the table and everyone to have a seat at the table so that we can create equity in Long Beach. I work with the homeless in LA.